The book of Ecclesiastes, verse 5. As you do not know the path of the wind, or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. Is Christian RPG gamers. So, for today's video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about there's like the Elder Scrolls Online, and then one of the first expansions outside of the base game is called Orsinium. Basically the half-orc people. So again, I'm not super familiar with how this stuff. I haven't made a lot of videos like these before, so this is probably the first in the series. But I would like to go through and just give some of my thoughts on some of this stuff. But before okay, sorry. Try not to speak too fast. I think I want to play the trailer for the series first, or for the expansion first. Then I want to talk some about the zone story quest. I want to try to keep the spoilers somewhat vague and generic. I want to think about how much I'm going to talk about it, and I'm just going to give some of my thoughts about it. And then I'll try to put some kind of a Christian spin on it too, and then we'll see what happens from there. So, I originally found this trailer from the YouTuber called GameSpot, which I believe they got from the game itself or they got it from Bethesda. But either way, I just found it from them. So, sometimes just for convenience sake. So, go check them out if you're interested, right?
Is this one of the outsiders who responded to my invitation? Welcome to Orsinium. My son needs someone at his side who has nothing to prove.
I am Kurog, king of the Orsimer. We will rebuild Orsinium, make it stronger. Whoever dares oppose the uniting of the Orc clans will feel my wrath. Welcome to my war.
So yeah, this came out. Apparently it came out in the later half of 2015. So, obviously this is a bit older, right? This is one of the first ones. I don't know if I'm going to use footage. I don't know if I'm going to use either still images or footage for this. I might do a little bit of both. I mean, I'll probably have to reveal some of the information, but I mean, I don't like to just ruin content necessarily for people to enjoy, but we'll see what happens here, right? I'm gonna probably have to talk about some of it. So, the basic story of the basic zone story is that okay, that there's basically a big conflict amongst the half-orc tribes, and there's this king, and then there's another king who I think was originally a king beforehand, or he was they have like these tribal leaders, and they have these clan chiefs, and they all kind of like get together, and it's this really big, complex, massive like political intrigue. So again, it's just like, it's kind of like a big giant dumpster fire of a world, and you got all these people who are like the orcish people. They're very like prideful and very like, they believe in the sense of honor, and they're like kind of like warriors, and they're like they're all kind of fighting over this land, and it's just a big giant huge mess that you're in. And then you, the player, you just kind of stumble through and along, and you just happen to find your way into this, into this story. And the story also interacts with a couple of different like elven characters who are kind of like kind of like outcasts or something from their original land, or they're just trying to find their way in place, and they find themselves into this story. And then, like, again, I'm not gonna try to do like heavy spoilers, but just some very basic information. So like this king, he kind of goes nuts, and he says like he's basically gonna wage, like he has this huge conspiracy, like political plot. Then you meet one of the older like clan chiefs or kings. It's a little bit vague as to what actually was happening, but this guy gets locked away in a prison, and you have to free him. And then this king, who's originally part of it, kind of just goes nuts, and he wages war and tries to like kill all the other people, and then like he ends up dying. It's this huge giant like big fight and conflict, and then there's some kind of peace at the end, right? So, but it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool story. To be honest, the story felt a little bit like Skyrim. I'm not saying that's a bad thing necessarily. Like, Skyrim does have a decent story. Now, the story of Skyrim isn't that long, and it's not that complex. Now, it has a bunch of side stuff you can do in Skyrim that the story of Skyrim can be a little bit long, but it's pretty simple for the most part. And this expansion felt a little bit like it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing necessarily, but oh yeah, and then there also wasn't a ton of moral choices as far as I could tell. But it's kind of like it was a more linear story. You kind of got to, and like ESO isn't like a super open world. I mean, it's open, and you do get to make choices, and sometimes you get to determine the fate. But for the most part, it was a pretty linear experience. But it wasn't like a bad thing at the end of the day either. So it was a pretty cool zone story without going like too heavy into spoilers, right? It's like it was about like around 6 to 7 hours. So it wasn't by like anything bad by any stretch of the imagination. And I do feel like I was overall pretty happy with the experience. So yeah, that was the Orsinium. Oh yeah, and then again, like I wanted to try to talk about some like some Christian perspectives and points of view. Again, so there was a lot of the whole idea of like kingmaker and like seeing who could be king, and like in a lot of ways it was pretty strongly mentioned that this king who was originally there, he was trying to look out for the best interest of his people. Now he was kind of a dick, but at the same time, he was looking out for the best for his people overall. So, I feel like at the end of the day, there is that, right? But he got bloodthirsty. He basically went a little crazy, and he took things way too far, because it was all about power, and he wanted power, and he wanted his own like vainglory, and it was kind of his own undoing at the end of the day. So I think some kind of like, moral perspectives and stuff, like, I guess, like, even like, a Christian point of view. Yeah, it did remind me of some like Old Testament stories, maybe just like a little bit, because again, a lot of these people it's a very tribal group of people. It's a very low power world too, because like a lot of the Elder Scrolls, it can be high fantasy, but the half orcs I feel like they were more on the lower fantasy side, because they were just more simple, normal people, and I felt like it helped me to relate a lot more to them. But, and like, even when the king did end up dying, huge numbers of people still went out, and they still showed him honor, even though he's kind of a dick. So, there was that at the end of the day. But, I mean, I did enjoy the story quite a bit, and it was pretty solid. I mean, if we're being like an MMO story, and to tell you the truth, I have not been through, and I have not done all of the zone stories. So I know I've done the zone story for Glenumbra, and I did the other one. I think it was, what's it called? Is it called Stormhaven? I think it's called, or it's like some kind of, it's one of those regions. Oh yeah, so I did that one. I'm pretty sure I did that one, and then I think I also did it's called like the Elkur Desert. So I think I did that one. I'm trying to think if I really did any of the other zone stories. I can't really remember off the top of my head. I do think that the vast majority of the zone story quests in this game, because I've only done like 4 of them now, about. They were pretty solid. Like, I have to admit that. Now, granted, I've only done a small pool out of all the ones I had available, so I couldn't tell you like in depth. And like, I mean, I've done at least I've seen. I mean, I did the Fighters Guild one. The Fighters Guild was pretty solid. I've watched some of the darker evil stuff, like the Dark Brotherhood and the Thieves Guild. I mean, those were okay at the end of the day. Because generally I don't want to be like an evil person, so I disagree with that kind of stuff. But those were pretty solid. I mean, or I could say like a lot of the zone stories are pretty cool in this game. And like, I think you get some kind of like a bear mount, and you get like this little bear cub you can kind of take with you, or it's like this very like ferocious looking animal that you could mount. It was pretty cool. Probably at the time it was really awesome. And there was some special like, the special armor set that you can show for like the half orcs. And like the half orc armor, in my opinion, is pretty cool. Like, it looks pretty good. It's kind of like a little bit manly, like a warrior. It's a little bit more like traditional, I would say. But overall, I still think it was pretty solid. So, again, they have the cool armor. And like, there are some other stuff you can do in the world. It has a couple of different, like, there's some zone bosses you can fight. It's kind of like a very like snowy, like kind of like, it's very dungeony in a lot of ways. Very rough world, rough territory. It has some of like the dwarven stuff in it too. So I think it's called Rothgar. It's a pretty cool area, pretty cool people. I do like some of the whole tribalistic kind of simple world. Again, there's a lot of pride, a lot of anger. But overall, it was a pretty fun story. So I did in a lot of ways enjoy my time there. How long is this? So Yeah, I don't know how much long. I don't know if I can make these like super long necessarily either. I don't know if making it shorter is a bad thing though. But again, it was just like, I mean, I just wanted to explore. I mean, so here's some of my other thoughts. Because like, I mean, for example, I bought this game. I bought a bunch of the different DLCs or like the expansion packs. I paid for some of the passes. I bought some extra stuff in it. I spent a lot of time in the game, but one thing I've never really done in ESO is I never really explored. Like, I never really did too many of the quests, like the zone quests, or even a tremendous amount like the side quests. Because I always wanted to play ESO as more like the whole MMO experience, right? But I never really did it for the story. So it's cool to see the story.